Oh yes, it is ready for our next session. Wow. Challenging the status quo, visionary water utility leaders with our moderator, Sarah Schlessinger. I'm Kathleen Jackson, and it's a pleasure to welcome you here today and also to have the opportunity to introduce Sarah, who has and continues to be a longtime champion for Texas water. I first met Sarah just after I was appointed to the board in 2014 at a meeting in Bandera. Sarah grew up in many different countries all over the world. She speaks 7 languages, graduated from high school in Switzerland, but her heart has and always will be deep in the heart of Texas. Her winters were spent in the Swiss Alps, but her summers were spent at her grandfather's ranch in Del Rio, where her mom was from. Today, Sarah serves as Chief Executive Officer of the Texas Water Foundation. We all believe that water is precious. We need it for drinking, for survival, and to enhance our quality of life. We also use it for recreation, but Sarah takes it to a whole different level. In Sarah's free time, she free dives, meaning she scuba dives without an oxygen tank. She descends 60 feet below the surface, holding her breath to get a glimpse close-up of dolphins, manta rays, and other sea creatures. If you try to call Sarah and she doesn't answer the phone, chances are she's practicing self-care by sitting 18 feet below the surface on the floor of Barton Screen's pool with goggles and fins, holding her breath and meditating. One of the accomplishments Sarah is most proud of is standing up the Texas Water Foundation Texas Water's Leaders Program. Sarah, thank you for being here. Thank you for your leadership. And thanks to our wonderful panelists for being here as well. It's my pleasure to welcome Sarah Schlessinger and her esteemed panelists.
Thank you. Thank you, Director Jackson. Unfortunately, none of those things were untrue. You will find fins and goggles in my car at all times. It's amazing how much water you can find in karst systems all across West Texas. It is a pleasure to be here, and Director Jackson, your panel, for those of you who joined her, it was such an inspiring kind of thought and discussion going into this one. Beyond the pipes and incredible infrastructure that we have in the Texas water sector is a complex network and workforce of water professionals, hopefully asking deep and meaningful questions. And never has there ever been a time where recruiting, retaining, and supporting that workforce has been more challenging than it is right now. And it takes visionary leadership to make that happen and to make sure that our workforce is stable and resilient. It is a pleasure to be hosting and to moderating this panel to talk a little bit about that. Kathy Bailey of the Cincinnati Water Utility, who couldn't be with us today, said, "The enormous challenges we have seen in the past year, COVID, BLM, and an election that has left us divided as a country, has required us to talk about things that we've never had to in the water industry. And that has in fact humanized our utilities." And today's panel is going to do exactly that, dive, pun intended, into the humanity of the water sector. We're going to talk about the business of investing in people. We're going to talk about the business of self-care or work-life integration. And we're going to invite a vulnerable and blunt conversation about what has to change if we're going to see a resilient and stable workforce. So with that, I'm very excited to have both of you on my panel. I'd like to start by introducing Joone Lopez, who is the General Manager of the Moulton Niguel Water District, joining us from Orange County in California. She is the daughter of an immigrant, bilingual, a former police officer, and whose commitment to people and that work has led her to leading a water utility that was named the #1 place to work in America. TWDB has claimed that honor here in Austin, so there should be a discussion between y'all after this. She said to me, "We're not just in the business of water, we are in the people business." And so I'd like to start by asking Joone if you would share your story about how it is that you came to work in the water business and indeed the people business.
Well, after your introduction, I just feel like I'm deflated. Oh. You're so accomplished. And wait till you hear about Yvonne. I'm just like not worthy in the middle. But to tell you a little bit about my story, it kind of goes back. I came to the United States when I was 8 years old from South Korea with my parents. We didn't have anything, so times were tough. And trying to come into a brand new culture where you didn't speak the language, and this is before ESL and all these fusion stuff was in fashion. So I always felt really out of place and very awkward for myself growing up. And there was a lot of domestic violence in my household, so I also felt very lonely. You go to school, you get bullied, and it just was one of those things where you just felt like you didn't belong anywhere. And that really stayed with me throughout my career because it really motivated me to make sure that no one felt what I felt. Because this carried on through my adult years as well. And the way that I got into water is kind of a meandering story. So I knew that growing up I wanted to help people because I was hungered to be helped and never got it. So I thought, what can I do with my life to be able to give back? To make sort of my pain everybody else's gain. And my first sort of real job after college was in journalism. I thought I could help people. I could tell their story because I just didn't feel like I was really good at anything. I was never really smart enough, never athletic enough, never pretty enough, never enough of anything. So I thought, well, maybe I can learn from other people's story and help them by telling their story. And I did that for a little bit, but in 1992, with the Los Angeles riot, my parents lost their shoe store. So then I had to assume head of the household because they lost everything, and we didn't have insurance. And so I had to go get a real job, and I went to go work for City of Pasadena as a grant administrator. Totally unqualified for this position, but I happened to get it because I helped to translate when I was dropping off my applications. So I'm not dating myself, but back then there was like no internet to apply for your jobs. You had to actually go and turn in your application. So I just got lucky because I was helpful, and they thought, well, she's really nice. Let's give her a chance. She's a nice young lady. And that's how I got the position. I didn't know what I was doing. I was working till 3 in the morning trying to figure this out. And I was able to work, it was a grant administrator position, to work with the police department, the city council, and the business community to mitigate all these fatalities and injuries from DUI because the city was really booming with all these bars and restaurants, and they were getting ready for the World Cup soccer. So they really brought on this program to make it safe. So I did that for about a year, and I had my office in the police department, and they said, you really seem to like working with people, and you're a hard worker. You ever thought about being a police officer? And I thought, never. Like, you cannot get more unathletic, uncoordinated than me. And like growing up, I was this fat kid that was always like, when you go to a school dance, you see that kid behind the bleacher when the slow dance comes on? That was me. And so I said, seriously? So I said, well, these people are smarter than me, so I thought I'd try it. Going through the academy and the police department, I'm not tall enough, I'm not strong enough, make her cry, throw her into a fight, let's get her out of here. Because law enforcement was different then. And I learned through that time that adversity is very strengthening. And for me, I wasn't sure where this was all gonna go, but my theory was every time they knocked me down, I was just gonna get up. And I was gonna show them that I do belong, even though I felt I didn't belong. And so I was very accustomed to being in a very male-dominated industry. And the reason I left law enforcement was to start a family. And word to the wise, never make a career decision based on love, because you never know how long it's gonna last. And so I left, and I was just looking for a job. And I got my master's while I was a police officer, and the first place that called me was a water agency. And I started at this like lowliest level in public affairs. They didn't give me a title. They said, you're just gonna be everyone's peon. And I'm like, I've been screwed around before, so I'm just gonna be the best peon there is. And so I did everything that nobody wanted to do, and I helped everybody, and I elevated in my career. So I've been a general manager now going on 12 years. And so all these stories, they weren't happy stories. There were a lot of times when I felt the lack of leadership, harassment before we had things like Me Too movements. I was ridiculed, I was outcasted because I didn't look the part, I didn't fit the part. I was awkward. All these things that I retained, instead of making it bitter, I decided to beautify it. And I said, I'm going to see if I can do better if I'm in charge. And that's why I decided to be a general manager. And when I got that first job, it was way in rural part of Northern California. I didn't even know where I was. And I was sort of fish out of water, always the odd duck. But what I realized is that people are people. And I treat people, my employees, my customers, my stakeholders, better than I want to be treated. It's the platinum rule. It's beyond the golden rule. Because I know what it feels like to be left out. So I'm always inclusive. Before we had DE&I, it was always about diversity, because every time I looked around, there was no one like me. In California, I am the only Asian female general manager out of almost 3,000 water providers. And so everywhere I go, I would never really be able to identify. So I said, I want to make it better for the next group of people. And what can I do? And how can I give people what they need and what they want? And make sure that they never feel the way that I felt. They don't experience what I experienced. And try to tell and share my failures and my mistakes so that they do better. Because my goal in life is to make everyone around me better than me. And to share the people and the relationships that I have. We talked about this last night. We love connecting people. We were joking like, if you need help, I may not be able to help you, but I know a guy.
Yeah, it's our superpower.
Right?
I know a guy.
We're the connector, the master connector. And that's what I love to do, because one person alone is never enough. Like I said, all these things that I was never enough of anything, but if you surround yourself, if you connect them, there's a power in that collective. And that's how you grow an organization. That's how you grow friendship. And that's how we became the top workplace, because we were about people, about each other. And taking all those lessons learned over the years and bringing an organization where people are safe, people feel belonged, where people are fulfilled. And when you create that environment, it is incredible what they can achieve. So, I always say it's everything and anything is possible.
Joone, thank you for sharing all of that. Really appreciate the candor. And we're going to talk a little bit about some of the observations of how things have changed. But first, I would like to introduce our second panelist, who is Yvonne Forest, the director of Houston Water. And when we spoke, this was the takeaway biography that I wrote down. A chemical engineer from South Carolina who didn't think she was a people person, and whose first day as director of Houston Water, which you chose for work-life balance and your family, was on the day that Hurricane Harvey landed.
Yes.
I'm sure that was a very short day for you. And you said, I never knew that I would love public service the way that I do. And I wondered if you would share your story, how it is that you've ended up in a position of leadership, and your philosophy on that as well.
So, first of all, her story is amazing. I'm sitting here like, oh my God, I am not worthy to be on this stage with these two ladies. So I was one of those nerdy kids, pigtails and glasses, and loved science, loved math. So, a bully's target. And went to school, got my engineering degree, thinking I might go to medical school. But when I finished chemical engineering, I'm like, I'm done. It was enough. I didn't want to see another thermo book, another chemistry book. I was done. But I also realized going to University of South Carolina, believe it or not, it was a bit of a unicorn. There are only 10 chemical engineers that graduated the year I graduated, 2 women, and I was the only person of color. And when you interviewed, your resumes are really generic. My name was fairly generic, and I would get those looks like, oh, that's not who I expected to walk in the room. And you learn over time to dim your light so you don't make other people feel uncomfortable. And when I joined my first chemical plant, it was an Amoco chemical plant. Half of the people thought I was a new admin. I couldn't be the new engineer. If I wore any Amoco paraphernalia in the Southeast, people thought I worked at a gas station because they're very popular there. But never was it, she's the new engineer. And so you leave one organization, you go to another, and you build your skill set, but you're still dimming your light because you need to make other people in the room feel comfortable. They feel very challenged if they realize, oh, she's a chemie, And even when I came through different organizations, mostly chemical plants, and I decided to come to the city. Almost all the engineers I worked with were PEs. I'm not a PE because when you're in a chemical plant, you get a PE, stuff goes boom, and you end up in a lawyer's office. I've seen it happen. I'm like, no, I don't need that. But you work with the PE, so I don't have the initials. And they were like, oh, she's one of those engineers, And I really went to the city because I wanted to be home at night with my kids. I had followed my career path through petrochemicals to the point where I was at a corporate headquarters, working health and safety. I would go in the morning and be told where I needed to be that day, that evening, or the next day. And it was not in Houston, it was not in Texas. It could be Seattle, it could be Pennsylvania, because it was a national, international company. And I had 2 small kids, and the people at childcare had keys to my house and signed checks because I never knew when I was going to be home. And I didn't like what that was doing to my kids. So I chose this job. I took a massive pay cut, and I went to a water plant. I'd only worked in chemicals, so I knew how to do boiler water, I knew how to do D-man, I knew how to do things for cooling towers. Drinking water, can't believe it's so hard. Oh my God. I would take the regs home and I would read them, and then I'd go in the plant and I would just walk the plant every day and try to figure it out. And things had changed in Houston when I joined. Most of the experience had retired. So it was me and 2 frontline supervisors running the largest surface water plant in the city of Houston, and we made it up every day. Like literally, we would come in like, what are we doing today? And we would just make it up. But I also found, because I had to build my staff, when I looked at resumes, I wasn't looking for people like me. I'm like, I need really smart people. I would look at the resumes, and what you think is smart, what the media and what my education and my career told me was smart, when you sit down across the table, you did not make those human connections. You could have a room full of really smart engineers, but it didn't feel right. And I'm like, I need to trust my gut. And so you would look for things on resumes that caught your attention. Oh, this person's an Eagle Scout. Well, my son's an Eagle Scout. I know how hard that is. This person worked their way through college. Like, you look at the job history, you know what that struggle is. Mm-hmm. And these are people who may not have the best GPAs, but have a life. And you can tell they tried to sanitize their resumes so that they would dim their light. And I'm like, I don't want to be that kind of person that makes other people feel like they have to dim their light to be in my space. And through my career, I've met amazing people in the city of Houston. It's one of the most diverse places to work. And you make that human connection. Those people who would put only in front of their title, you said you didn't even have a title. I'm only a utility worker, I'm only an operator. I'm like, no, you are the operator. You are the one responsible for making sure this water is safe. You're the one that's putting water back in this person's home because you're fixing a leak. It's not glamorous, but yes, that's what you do. And I celebrate what they do because sitting in this chair, truth is, I don't have a job. I have a title, but I don't do anything except take care of my people every day. Mm-hmm. And part of that is making space for them to shine, making space for them to grow, making them feel comfortable with what they're doing and how important they are to us achieving the mission. And some of them call me a mama bear. Like I have a few people in this room that they have seen when nobody's in the room but the family. I'm like, we can't do that. We're never going to make that mistake again. But if the mayor's mad, he just sees me. He doesn't, I don't put them in that line of fire. But it's been hard, getting comfortable in my own skin enough to let other people be in their space. I have amazing people on my team, and the language I've learned to use, because we don't use field workers. These are my people on the front lines, we don't use like higher pay grades or lower. There are classifications at different pay grades, but everyone is required, everyone is necessary. Everyone that works for me, believe it or not, is an adult, and so I try to treat them that way. Because sometimes when you walk in a room and you're dimming your light and you're trying to make yourself small so you can make other people feel comfortable, they treat you like you're small. They treat you like you don't have thoughts and ideas of your own. And early in your career, you tend to allow that. But I don't want anyone that I work with to ever feel that way.
So you bring up, gosh, what a powerful statement as we transition over to talk a little bit about what's changing, right? And you said it's been hard. I mean, you're both two women running enormous water utilities that have gone through major disasters, natural and otherwise.
Yes.
Incredible responsibility, incredible workforce that you're maintaining. And Joone, you told me water is the economy. In 2020, you had to rely on the resilience of people to keep water stable as an essential service. That water workforce is a collective, but it's made up of individual people. So I want to talk a little bit next about what's changing, what you're noticing in your individual utilities. And Yvonne, you said, we thought it was going to be the silver tsunami, right? Everybody here knows that on a national scale, the general statistic is that about a third of the workforce is going to retire in the next few years, right? And we know that's true in Texas as well. So we thought it was going to be the silver tsunami, the retirements, but it's actually the quality of the job. So I want to talk a little bit about what's changing. What have you noticed in your industry? What are the demographic changes, and what are those changes telling you about the workforce? And maybe we'll start with California, if you don't mind.
Sure. When I look at the demographics of our industry, it's not changing much. The people we serve, it's changing a lot. And as an industry, we are not reflecting the people that we serve. And the biggest problem with that, because people say, well, what's wrong with that? Why is that an issue? When you don't connect with people, you become irrelevant. And especially as a public agency, if you're irrelevant, then you don't matter. And that's the last place that we want to be as an industry. I think 2020 was such a test for everyone. There was no emergency response plan, communication plan. There was no game plan. There was no playbook for the scenario that we encountered. It was compounding crisis. And everyone was scrambling. And on top of that, every sort of mutual aid response we've ever known required us being together, but now we had to be separated. So it's really important for us that we had that foundational culture, the one that we had built long before we ever needed it, to bring people together. We had some staff working in the field, we had some staff working remotely. In a lot of other organizations, that calls some division. Well, how come he and she get to work at home? I have to work out here, I have to come to work. Fortunately, we didn't have that because we had the culture. But I also made sure that we did very conscientious, frequent communication so that everybody knew what was going on. That way there was no misinformation, there was no assumption, we explained why we did things. We had a lot of communication. I'm sure you all did the same. But that foundational culture, the one that was healthy and strong, was so incredibly important because without that, we would have been scrambling. But we kept it together. And then in 2020, we decided to do something really crazy because, we got top workplace in Orange County, the #1, and we got top workplace USA. But we also decided to do a survey of our customers. People thought I was insane. Why would you pick probably the worst time to ask your customers, hey, are you satisfied? How are we doing? And we thought, well, what better time to really test ourselves than to see how people were experiencing us. And out of the 95% of customers who responded, they were all satisfied. No disruption, no interruption in service. And what that showed was when you have a strong organization, when you have really strong, healthy employees, you also have a very strong, healthy relationship with your communities and the people that you serve. And that's important, whether it's a drought, whether it's a pandemic, whenever we have to tell customers to do something that they really don't want to do, like use less water or other things of that nature. It's that trust, that relationship that you build that is so key. Now, however, the way that we lead and manage needs to evolve because times are changing, generations are different, and especially after this remote separated working, I'm seeing a big change. And we're very quick to talk about this remote working, but I'm also noticing something else, which is the world has changed and we've all changed. Whether you think you've changed or not, you've changed more than you think. Because when I start to bring all the employees back to work, you know, when you haven't seen an old friend for a long time, it takes you a little bit, unless you've been like really good friends. If you haven't seen each other for like 18 months or a couple of years, it takes a little bit of ramp-up period. Now imagine if you've completely changed and they've changed, and for the last 18 months, the only people that you've really been talking with are your families and friends, not your coworkers. You're not dealing with daily conflicts that come from work, which is very normal and actually healthy. And so people are figuring things out, like something's kind of off. Even if we had this great culture, it's like something is off. And it's because we've changed. So now I'm focusing more on feeling. You know, for the longest time, our agency was known as data-driven agency. You know, we do all this technology, we do all this innovation. But this time, to me, it's about feelings, because people are not feeling okay. There's this collective anxiety, individual anxiety. Like, what's going on with COVID? There's another variant. Oh my gosh, what do I do? Do I shake your hand? Do I hug you? Do I not? Do I offend you? We're doing these mental jumping jacks. We're also a little sad because the life that we knew isn't like that anymore. And it's amazing how many people suffered losses and is still going through grief. Not to mention the distractions at home, the everyday life. You don't want to put your kids in child care. You don't want to put your elderly parents in elder care because they're strangers. So now you have the home thing to take care of, and now you got the work thing to take care of. There's so much distraction. And I started to notice that when everybody started to come back, even though our field personnel were working, I started to see a little bit more fender benders, like they're running into objects. They're running into little things because they're distracted. And so we had a pause moment and said, let's talk about feelings. And I'm not known as a touchy-feely person, but we have to talk about feelings because that is powerful. And I think, I heard from a previous panel, I think, Director, you said this, you know, the hardest thing is not the decisions you make here, but the decisions you make at the heart. And that's really what's being highlighted right now. And so the way that we need to evolve has to really keep in mind what is the temperature of the employees of our organization. Where's the temperature of our customers? Because our customers are also going through it. So now we're really playing up, you know, we went from customer service to customer engagement. Now we're a customer experience because we want to be more than just your utility. We want to be your neighbor. We care about how you feel. And we will all work through this together and learn from one another. And you can't get complacent. I can't sit here and say, well, you know, we've been in the top workplace for all these years, so I'm good. You know, I think I got this stuff down. I have to evolve and stay nimble and responsive and provide the kind of guidance and support that works for people within the organization, but also people outside of the organization.
Thank you for sharing that. It reminds me of what Kathy Bailey had shared as well and saying, hey, all these things that have happened in the past year and a half, you can't ignore them. People are feeling it, they're affected by it on either side of it, and it's something within the workplace as a leader that you're going to have to find a way to create an environment of inclusivity and allow all of that to come up. Yvonne, when you and I spoke and thinking a little bit about what the demographics, the changes are that you're observing, you shared something rather alarming to me that I had not considered in terms of being able to recruit and retain a central workforce.
Yes.
Would you share with us what you've been seeing in Houston?
So in Houston, most people think that we were competing with the petrochemical industry, which is true for some of the technical jobs, the electricians, the SCADA techs, the instrument techs. And we're also competing with the medical industry. But right now, since the pandemic hit, we're competing with Kroger and Walmart for the entry-level people. Like, no one wants to come in and work shift work, weekends, holidays for the same pay that you get at one of those facilities. The other thing we're seeing is Houston is working to be very inclusive to our demographics in the city of Houston and Harris County. So all publications we put out in 6 languages. Can you imagine trying to translate your water quality report or boil water notice in 6 languages? We've been fortunate to have a few people on staff, but the last one, we struggled to find someone who could translate it into Arabic for us. What we're also finding is a lot of people that live with us in Houston are not a native to the United States. And so they come from cultures where they don't trust the drinking water. Mm-hmm. How do you build that trust if you don't have someone on the inside that understands that and can explain it to them in language and in a way that they will understand it? There's a lot of challenges, and Joone laid up quite a few of them out, but I think at the end of the day, we don't do ourselves any service in the utility space, because for the longest time we wanted to be behind the scenes. If you weren't in the paper, that was a good thing. We didn't talk about the challenges, we didn't talk about the opportunities. And when I first went to a panel at a college, and I'm like, I have everything on my team from GEDs to PhDs. You want to do a career, almost any space, you can do it inside of a utility. We have communications teams, we have certified laboratories, we have our own engineers, maintenance space. I mean, there's space for everyone, but we're not really good at recruiting. We're not really good at telling our story. And for those of you that have frontline teams, when we had to give them a letter during the pandemic saying that they were essential, by presidential order, so that they could get childcare, so they could come to work, because those spots were reserved for police and fire and medical people, not for utility operators. It was hard, and we lost a few people, but I think we have a few new ones coming because they see this as an opportunity.
So that's a perfect jumping off spot. One of the things that Joone and I, that we spoke about last night, is that as you're recruiting and thinking about the next generation, that you'd be surprised how much of it is not about the paycheck, but about the sense of purpose, right? And what better industry to inspire that. I'm going to pause because I'd like to talk about some of the things that we're up against in some of those, and give you a fair warning, because I listen over lunch, and let you know that we're going to open up for questions in about 10 minutes. So be thinking about them. So you've started talking about some of the things that we're up against, and one of the phrases that I find myself saying a lot during the past year and a half is that I believe, as a water professional, that one of our biggest occupational hazards is burnout, both as a leader and within your team as a workforce. And we spoke, Yvonne, and we spoke about this as well, Joone, about self-care and modeling self-care as a leader to your team as being essential in retaining your workforce, and what aspects, how do you become feeling focused, people focused as a strategy to retain people. And I wondered if both of you would share maybe some of the strategies that you're using within your teams, or what you have found in how you model that type of work-life integration.
Well, I can start. I have quite a few people in the room that work with me, and we start every meeting with, how is everyone doing? How are you doing? Are you okay? Are you taking time off? And are you making space for your teams to take time off? And they also know, and I'll let them know, it's like, okay, I'm taking Friday off. I'm just clearing the meetings. I need a day. I just need to step back and regroup. And we've had some hard losses during this pandemic, and especially during the shutdowns. And one of the things you do with your team is you come together to mourn. You come together to celebrate, but really hard when you lose somebody. And we've been trying to work around that. We've been trying to make space for people to have that downtime, because like you said, you see the accidents, or unfortunately, you see the positive drug tests. Like, people are trying to find a way to cope. And we're trying to find that space, so it's like, not just the employee assistance, which is independent of the day-to-day, but you'll hear it in our language. You hear it in the Director of Public Works is going around to different facilities, making herself available
to just take people's temperature. How are you doing? You know, let us know how we can make it better for you. Besides asking for a raise, because you're not getting it.
Well, I'm a terrible example of self-care because
Strong way to start.
I just don't really do a good job of work-life balance, which is a problem to itself. But I also realize I like work. And the reason why I like work is I feel like I make better decisions at work than I do in my life. So it's like a happy place for me. But the way that I try to model to my staff is with three things. There's a communication, there's humor, and there's vulnerability. And communication is to say, look, this is the way that I am. Not expecting you all to do what I do. Don't want you to be like me. Remember, I always want to surround myself with people who are different. I don't just want your feedback, I want your pushback. And I've been saying this since day one. And so I communicate to let people know what I expect of them, which is not something that I probably model myself. But as long as people are clear on the expectation and they know that your actions are consistent with what you say, they'll trust you. And then a little bit of humor, because I think sometimes we miss that. We get so serious. And in the toughest times, a little bit of levity can be kind of that joining factor, a smile, a laughter. And I do it at my own expense. I make fool of myself all the time. I have no problem with that. And so they realize that I do mean what I say, and I just enjoy being around the employees and the work. And sometimes, like on a Friday, because we have 4:10 schedule for our field personnel, 9:80 for our office. It's like on a Friday, I'll go mess around and I'll take pictures at people's desks, just to kind of show people that I know you're not here and I'm just having fun. And it's okay that if you're not here. I always tell people, life happens, take care of yourself. But do me one favor, make sure you got the next up. Meaning, if you got to take time off, who's the next up? Who's your bench? Got to have a backup. Because I never want to be in a situation to where I say, gosh, Yvonne, I know you're going through a lot, but there's no one else can do what you do. And it's like, and then now you feel bad. So I say, just prepare and one behind you. And that goes for every single position through all levels of the organization. So that way, if you got to go away for 6 weeks, fine. Somebody else will take your place in the meantime. So that cross-training, that succession doing, as we call it, not succession planning, is really important. And last but not least is vulnerability. For the longest time, because of the way that I grew up, the way that I was in my career, I thought it was so important to just have this facade. Not talk about the stuff that I was embarrassed about, that I was shamed about. Stuff that I share with you today, a year ago, I never did. Because I didn't want people to know that. I didn't want to show my weakness. We see our vulnerability as a weakness. And I realized that was the biggest failure in my life. Because the employees, yes, we have a great work relationship. They trust me. We have a great time. But they only saw me one-dimensional. And they didn't see me as a person, the humanity side. And that vulnerability doesn't mean you're weak. It just means you're strong enough to show that side of you. And I'll talk about myself. I'll talk about all the things that I'm not, all the mistakes that I've made, all the things that cause me worry. But make no mistake, I will make decisions that you're not going to agree with. I will listen to you. I care about your feelings. But I got an organization to run. I have people to serve. But I will always explain myself. So it's this balance of, what I call sort of that supportive, that love, because I love my employees, but that comes also with equal amount of firmness and have the backbone to stand up to unpopular decisions and to do what is right. And if you're consistent in that, it's amazing how much people not only trust you, but they'll believe you and they will follow you. And not only will they follow you, this is the best part. Sometimes when you're tired, they will carry you. And that's the wonderful thing that I've learned over the years with trials and errors, because I certainly made a lot of mistakes, but it's something that has really stayed with me.
I love the succession doing. I haven't heard that before. That's wonderful. I'll close with this question before I open it up to questions, second warning, is that you both spoke to the unique challenge of being a female leader in the utility space. And Joone, I think that you spoke to that so eloquently just now in saying that as a female who is ambitious, that there's a tendency to believe that in order to be successful, that you have to overachieve and be that one-dimensional, perfect, not human person. And I wondered if either one of you wanted to share any reflections on that, and perhaps maybe to throw it in there as well. You know, we can't have this panel without also talking about the diversity question. You can't be in the water space without talking about diversity, equity, and inclusion. And Yvonne, you said diversity is a fact, inclusion is a choice. And I love that so much. I wondered if you might speak to that and the challenges of being a female utility leader.
I believe that was a title of a Forbes article earlier this year that just has resonated with me. But it definitely is trying to find candidates for all the positions that look like the communities we serve. Because really those frontline people are your ambassadors, but you also want them to have opportunities for promotional opportunities inside an organization. And so you have to be clear about the criteria. You have to make the practice absolutely transparent. Not lay everybody's resume, you know, on the lunchroom table, but have it independent evaluation of the applications and not just that supervisory chain picking their friend for the next promotion. And when, like I talked about, an international community, if you just have a truck roll up and nobody in that work crew looks like or can speak to that community, how are you really making sure they have a good experience? If you're only putting up signs that say what you're doing in English and they don't read English in that neighborhood, how are you taking care of them? We actually came up with a moonshot for Houston Water, similar to JFK sending people, challenging them to go to the moon. And it was to be not just 100% compliant with regulations, but 100% satisfaction of our employees and our customers. And that was purposeful because if our employees are not satisfied, our customers will see it. We'll be making those mistakes. We'll be running into their cars, tearing up their yards, and just being grumpy about it. So you have to reflect the area you live in order to really get the pulse, because I think a lot of people in our area have survey fatigue. They're not really responding unless they're angry. And so we've just been really purposeful about trying to reflect those areas.
Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, DEI to me is all about action. It's not lip service, it's not having committees and having a plan, it's just do it, just go out there. It's not like you can't find people. Work with partners within your community, outside of your community. Go out, make yourself available. Go to where the people are. Go to your community, talk about it, be excited about it. Help people so they could see that the water is just more than what they see on TV. It's not just about the drought and the utility. There's innovation, there's excitement, there's a purpose. And I think for me, being Korean woman in 2 industry now that's very male dominated, I think my approach was to try to fit in by being something that I'm not. And that failed miserably. Because you just, people see right through it. And I had to figure out, who am I? What do I need to do? Because, yes, you still feel out of place. But I turned that around to say, when you get to know everyone's story, it's amazing how everyone also feels out of place, regardless of what they look like. Everyone's got their own story. You can't say, well, because you're a male white in your 50s, you got it easy, you got it all good, you have no idea how life is. You can't do that. That's judging one another. Everyone has a story, and everyone has a compelling story. And the idea of inclusiveness is for everyone, not just one gender's type, not just for one, people of color. It's for everyone, because everyone needs to work on this together. And so for me, you talked about dimming light. I love that phrase, because I've been told many a times that I need to dim my light, because I'm...
Look at her face.
I'm a very happy person. I'm shy, but I like people. And That's why I'm always eager to meet people and connect people. And sometimes people find that like, why are you always so happy? Like, your hair's too long to be a manager. You don't look old enough. I'm 50, it's like I'm a grown woman. Your heels, they're kind of high. There's a lot of things that's not right with me, and that's okay. Because I'm gonna embrace every single one and turn on every single light, because it's not for me. It's to use that light to guide others around me who feel like they can't be themselves, who feel that they need to change who they are to succeed, to rise, to matter, to belong. And so I'm like, look at this mutt. Look at this odd duck. Laugh at me, poke fun at me, say what you will. But I'm still standing. And for all the other misfits out there that feel the way I do, own it and be happy with yourself, because that is diversity. We all bring different things to table. So it's not about trying to conform. It's about being your unique self, your changing self. Because you get to change, by the way. We all get to be Madonnas. We all get to reinvent ourselves. We don't get to be put into a box or a category at a certain time. But always remember two things I always tell people, which I remind. Be a good person, be a good human being, be kind. Be kind and good to everybody around you, no matter how they are to you. Number two, and equally important, always help people. And when you do that, you'll see the people around you grow, the network. You're always gonna have a little bit of haters, that's all part of life, but they dwindle away. The real strong ones, we stick together because we support each other in whoever, whatever we are. To me, that is the beauty of diversity, equity, and inclusion, is that everyone belongs, and we have to actively make sure that everyone feels belonged. It's not just how I feel. You look at the person to the left of you, you look at the person to the right of you. If you see them at a conference, they're by themselves, bring them into your group. Ask them how they are, who they are, what do they do. Pull them in. And that's how you do DEI. You do that all the time.
Thank you. Well, it is no surprise that our panel on visionary water utility leaders are two incredibly strong and vulnerable women. With that, I'd like to turn it over to any questions that there might be in the audience. And I know that there are floating microphones. Anybody brave enough to ask a question?
Oh, good, there are questions. I was going to start off
Oh, good. Yeah, well, I had follow-ups.
So, as representing a certain type of diversity in your positions at the top of your professions, maybe some would consider, how do you look at diversity when you think about succession planning? Is there pressure for you to, oh, well, now you've had that, it's time to swing closer to the quote-unquote norm, or how do you weave that in when you think of succession planning?
Well, I can tell you, I seek diversity at every level of the organization. So I tell the team that supports me, the direct leadership team, that any of them should be able to sit in the chair I'm in when I retire. And that's probably more women in that role than men, and multiple ethnicities. So I seek diversity so that it's not just the voice in my head, or the multiple voices in my head, if you ask some people, that is speaking for Houston Water. So.
I just want to pause and really emphasize the beauty of what you just said, that anybody could sit in her seat when she's tired. I just want to think back on the vulnerability and the self-care component. That was a beautiful way of stating it. Thank you.
No, and I think we all have a responsibility. Again, the way that I define diversity is all walks of life, every single person. But we have to all be champions of that. If you get to the table, it's not enough that you just sit there and feel good about yourself. You got to turn around and make sure you pull somebody else to the table, and making sure that you have diversity of perspectives. And so you require everyone. It's not just one group or the other, it's about everyone. And I think for me, just because I'm women, I have a lot of women who reach out to me, a lot of younger women. And so for me, on a personal level, I try to give myself a little accountability test, which is, I make time for everyone. And so I love helping young ladies or young men, or whoever wants to get my help. I've helped them get jobs, helped them get into the industry, helped them meet people. To me, it's not just what you do at work, it's what you have to do in life. And that's what I model to my staff. So I say, if you want to get promoted here, if you want to be successful and get good appraisals, I don't care how smart you are. I don't care what you did. I want to know what you did for someone else. How did you help your coworker? How did you make lives better for our customers? The service to others is the way that you elevate, and the recognition of others, and how you include others. So that's the matrix that we use to reward and promote. And surprisingly, in terms of recruitment, that's why we're getting a lot of great people, because it's a buzz. People realize, oh, this is different, and we're getting a lot of interest.
Thank you. Are there? Indeed.
Do either of you, your utilities, do outreach to students, not at the college level, but at the middle school and high school level, to let them know what the utilities do, what kind of jobs there are in utilities, as a way of maybe reaching a more diverse audience at that level? This is not something, of course, that's going to result in short-term recruitment, but maybe long-term, that is something that would help in terms of bringing more diverse populations into your industry. And I'm wondering if you see that as part of your long-term responsibilities.
Absolutely. So we started an initiative back in 2018 called FLOW, Future Leaders of Water, and it's a multi-track, and one of them is reaching out to grade schools, and we do programs, education programs, but we also invite them to take tours. Anytime a student, even one student, wants to come to our agency, we make time. We all rally. And we have this thing called General Manager for a Day, where like a kid will come and hang out with me, and they get to be General Manager for a day. All those little points of impression, whether it's Boy Scout, Girl Scout, Science Club, whatever, we always make time, because that's important, and we show them what can be achieved. But we do also work with community colleges and universities to do integrated learning, because I didn't realize this, because like I said, I wasn't that smart, but in college, apparently, if you're really smart, they start recruiting you before you graduate. So like you're committed, it's like a draft pick. And so here we are, like waiting for students to graduate and be like, hey, here's water. They're all getting signed up by private companies, and so we said, okay, well, let's do that. And so we're having this major event in 2022 that we've organized with some of our colleges, and to do this like a networking bonanza, where we're going to have like all these potential employers, private, public, anything that has to do with water, come in and make a pitch. Why us? Why you? Why you should pick us as a profession, and why we want you, and making that network connection early on. And we want to do that also with high school and grade school, is to find the opportunity to go in there and make that pitch early so that we get on their radar early.
And at the City of Houston, we do partner with multiple high schools in HISD, and of course, pre-COVID, would send somebody, like every week, somebody from Public Works would go to the high schools and talk about opportunities in Public Works. We had a venue that was open, and we would even sponsor people to come, like pay for the school buses to come up to our education center, mostly for the elementary school kids. It's closed right now because of construction. And so we're thinking about moving it to another public venue to have that outreach potential. Things have been a little different because of COVID and the contacts, and so we haven't been able to be as present as we were in elementary schools before, in the junior high and the high schools, but we have put it on our radar, and we are working with the HISD.
Thank you. I think we have one more minute available if there's a burning question. No pressure.
Slightly lit. With the elevated levels of stress, both personal and professional, how do you combat burnout in the workplace?
For me, what I like to do is just remind myself sort of what's important, because the workday can get quite stressful sometimes, depending on what's going on. So when I have those moments, I'll do my laps. I make my rounds. I go and I talk to the employees, the field personnel, the employee personnel. And I just like to have a little, talk smack, have fun, because it really reminds me of why I love this, the people. So if I'm having a bad moment, I'll go and put the thing that I love in front of me, the people. I think it's also good to have sort of support, whether it's your friends or people in the industry that you trust to share some of your moments. And having that kind of a support group is nice. If you have hobbies, whatever your hobbies may be, you got amazing hobbies. I can't do any of that. So, I like to eat and drink, but that's what I like to do. It's very simple. That's my self-care.
That requires water.
Yeah. People are like, oh, you work out. I'm like, no, I hate working out. So I love to eat and drink. That's what I do. So find something that gives you happiness and just take it one day at a time. You're not going to die. And reach out to others that you think could help you kind of pull yourself out of your funk, because we all hit that. And it's good to change things up, because that's why I always create initiatives and do something fun in the organization. Like when we're bringing everybody back to work, I'm like, BOAT plan. I love acronyms. It's like a sticker for the brain. BOAT stands for back to office and all together. So when we had everybody back, I wore the captain's hat, everybody had like a little sailor hat. And you just make it fun to just like change it up and give everybody a chance to laugh. It's good for you. And to me, that's kind of the way I deal with stress.
Mine are two-pronged. First, in the office, I have definitely allowed myself to be more open and vulnerable and sharing with my support team, like, I can't carry your load. I can't. I'm here to help you think things through, but I can't solve the problems. And working on team dynamics, so not everyone's feeling like they're alone, that we are a network together leading this organization. Lots of trips to the liquor store. And then, having your own trusted network, not necessarily coworkers, but other women that are dealing with this. I must share one thing. I know we're almost out of time. During Winter Storm Uri, Kathy Bailey actually texted me on my phone and said, "What do you need?" And I'm like, "We're good. We're Texans. We're good. It'll warm up. We'll be fine." She's like, "You need hats?" I'm like, "Girl, I won't wear a hat if you sent it here." I'm like, "My team is working. There are thousands of main breaks. They're probably going to need some snacks, stuff that they can grab in the truck and go." This woman sent one tweet, and we got over 50,000 snacks. I mean, my conference table was covered over and 3 times over with Amazon boxes. The guy would come up with like a laundry bin, like the mail laundry bin, and just load my table with boxes. And it was from people I know, people I don't know, from this utility space. And it was like one tweet, and you just felt the love, and you knew you weren't alone. And I think that's part of the burnout, is sometimes we feel like we're carrying this alone. She said it so eloquently. You have on that facade that you're an iron lady, that you can just do this, you show up every day. Some days I show up and my admin walks in behind me and shuts my door, and they're like, "No, we don't want to deal with you. You're in timeout." Come out after 2 cups of coffee and see, if you can mingle with people again. But right now, you just need to be alone. And she gets the phone and she just puts me in timeout. I'm like, okay, I guess that face, that says I really don't feel it today is on, and you just snap out. But you said it perfectly. We're not in these roles because it pays a lot. We're in these roles because we love what we do, and you're willing to take those calls on Saturdays and Sundays and 2 in the morning, and take care of the customers and take care of your team members, and you remember why you took the job, why you're here, and it's just been amazing.
Mm-hmm. Well, there are benefits in being, what is her Twitter? It's the First Lady of Water?
Flow.
That's right, First Lady of Water. There are benefits to that. Join me in thanking this incredible panel. We could have talked for hours about how you collaborate with Netflix to avoid building a reservoir, or how you manage the duality of flood and drought. We could have talked about water, but instead you very bravely talked about the humanity of water. And I want to thank you so much and invite all of you to join me in thanking this incredible panel.
Sarah, we want to thank you and your incredible panelists for sharing your innermost thoughts and for your engagement.